I welcome you to my channel. Subscribe and listen to my new stories every day. David watches as Abigail prepares for another long day at the office, her eyes alight with a mixture of excitement and determination. She talks animatedly about her latest project, her voice filled with the kind of passion that David once believed was reserved only for their early days together. "It's a big opportunity, David," she says, adjusting her sleek, black blazer. "If I nail this, a promotion is definitely on the table." David smiles, pouring her another cup of coffee. "I'm proud of you, Abby. You deserve this." He tries to catch her eye, hoping for a shared moment, but she's already lost in her thoughts, her gaze fixed on her buzzing phone. As weeks morph into months, Abigail's late nights become the norm. The office calls stretch longer, and her explanations grow vaguer. David's initial pride slowly curdles into suspicion, but he shoves it aside, chalking it up to insecure whispers of his mind. Then, it happens. Abigail breezes through the front door one evening, her face glowing, an unfamiliar buoyancy in her step. "I got it, David. The promotion, it's official." She twirls around the living room, her laughter echoing off the walls. David forces a smile, his heart sinking. "That was fast, wasn't it?" he murmurs, his voice barely above a whisper. "What was that, love?" she asks, pausing mid-twirl. "Nothing. I'm happy for you," David replies, but the seed of doubt is already planted, sprouting roots that claw deep. The next day, with Abigail's hurried kiss still lingering on his cheek, David dials her office number, needing to hear her voice, to quash the gnawing doubts. The phone rings twice before Abigail answers, her tone light but rushed. "Hey, can't talk right now, David." Her words cut off abruptly, and a gruff, unfamiliar voice replaces hers. "She's not your woman anymore, pal." The voice is blunt, coarse like sandpaper. "Forget her." The line goes dead, leaving David with a chilling silence that wraps around him like a vice. The room spins, his knees buckle, and he collapses into a chair, his mind racing. The betrayal slices through him, raw and sharp. The signs had been there, yet he'd painted them over with excuses, with trust. But now, the truth is glaring, undeniable. Fueled by a raging storm of betrayal and hurt, David's thoughts darken. He won't let this slide. Abigail and her boss, they've not only lied, they've mocked the sanctity of their vows. As the days pass, David's plan takes shape, a cold, meticulous blueprint for revenge. He starts gathering evidence, documenting every lie, every secret rendezvous. And when he strikes, it's with the precision of a surgeon, cutting out the tumor that is their betrayal from his life. Abigail's world crumbles. The career she used, the relationships she betrayed him for, they all unravel under the weight of her choices. The divorce papers are just a formality, a period at the end of a long, painful sentence. And as he walks away from the wreckage of their life together, David doesn't look back. He's done with Abigail, forever. David sits in his dimly lit study, his laptop open in front of him, a blank document glaring back like an accusation. He can't shake the image of Abigail's boss snatching the phone, the smug declaration that tore his world apart. His fingers hover over the keyboard, hesitant at first, but then he begins to type, each click a step toward his retribution. "David, what are you doing in here all alone?" His friend, Mark, leans against the doorway, concern etching his features. "I'm planning, Mark," David replies without looking up. "I need to expose them, both of them." Mark steps inside, pulling a chair close. "Expose them how? What's the plan?" David turns the screen slightly, revealing a complex flowchart of Abigail's known schedules, her boss's LinkedIn profile, and a list of mutual acquaintances. "I'm collecting everything. Emails, texts, call logs. I want to know how deep this goes." "You hacked into her accounts?" Mark's eyebrows shoot up, a mix of shock and disbelief. David nods, a grim determination setting his jaw. Yes. And I've got enough to show how they've been using company time for their affairs. Her boss won't see it coming. Neither will she. Jesus, David. Be careful, man. This could blow up in your face, Mark warns, but David's eyes are cold, fixed. It's a risk I'm willing to take. I need this, Mark. The next day, David follows Abigail as she leaves for work. He watches from a distance as she meets her boss at a secluded cafe, their laughter floating across the busy street. He snaps photos, the lens of his camera a barrier that dulls the sting of betrayal. When they part, David's determination hardens. He tracks down Abigail's boss later that evening, confronting him as he leaves a downtown bar. You think you can steal my wife and just walk away? David's voice is low, dangerous. The man halts, surprise flickering to defiance. She came to me, pal. You lost her long before I came into the picture. That's where you're wrong, David retorts, stepping closer. He thrusts the printed emails and photos at him. I know everything. And so will everyone else soon. The boss scoffs, crumpling the papers. You think this scares me? You're a nobody. David smiles, cold and hard. We'll see about that. He leaves the man standing there, his confidence shaken. Back home, David prepares for the final act. He compiles a detailed dossier and mails it anonymously to the company's board of directors. Within it are all the proofs of the affair, the misused company resources, the lies. Days pass in a tense silence until the news breaks. The scandal erupts across local media, fueled by leaked documents and whistleblower reports. Abigail and her boss become the faces of corporate deceit. As the company scrambles to control the damage, Abigail's career unravels. Her promotion is rescinded, her professional reputation tarnished. She calls David, her voice desperate. How could you do this to me? You did this to yourself, Abigail, David says, the phone shaking in his hand. You chose this path. He hangs up, a bitter satisfaction settling in his chest. As he watches the chaos unfold from afar, a part of him knows this is just the beginning. His revenge has taken shape, but the storm he's unleashed is far from over. David's victory is Pyrrhic, the fallout from the scandal he ignited spreads like wildfire, engulfing not just Abigail and her boss but also pulling him into the public eye. As he sips his morning coffee, the incessant buzz of his phone pulls him back to the harsh reality he's orchestrated. David, have you seen the papers? Mark's voice crackles through the phone, urgent and tense. They're linking you to the leaks. You're on the radar now. David's grip tightens around the mug. Let them look. I have nothing to hide anymore. But as he hangs up, a kernel of anxiety nestles itself deep within him. He realizes that his actions have not only dismantled Abigail's world but have also made him a target. Later that day, David stands outside the office building where Abigail used to work. The place is swarming with reporters, each eager to snatch the juiciest tidbits of the scandal. He watches as Abigail battles through the crowd, her face a mask of defiance despite the tears in her eyes. David feels a pang of something akin to remorse but quickly smothers it. She notices him, her expression hardening. Are you happy now, David? Look what you've done. I did what was necessary, David replies, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. You brought this on yourself. Abigail shakes her head, her voice breaking. You've ruined everything. Not just for me but for yourself too. Was it worth it? Before he can answer, a reporter spots them and shoves a microphone in his face. Mr. Hargrove, are you responsible for the leaks at Global Tech Industries? David hesitates, the question catching him off guard. I. Tell them, David, Abigail interjects bitterly. Tell them how you couldn't handle your own insecurities. Flashes from cameras blind him momentarily as he searches for the right words. But instead of defending himself, David turns away, leaving the questions unanswered and the speculations to grow. The following days are a blur of legal consultations and media scrutiny. David's role in the leak becomes a point of heated debate, drawing both sympathy and condemnation. Late one evening, as David reviews the tumultuous events, his doorbell rings. He opens the door to find a somber-looking man in a suit. "Mr. Hargrove?" the man asks. "I'm Detective Morris. We need to talk about your involvement with the data leak at Global Tech Industries." David nods, leading the detective into his living room. The air is thick with tension as Detective Morris outlines the potential legal repercussions of David's actions. "You've caused significant damage with these leaks. The company is pressing charges, and there might be more coming your way," Morris explains, his tone neutral yet firm. David listens, his face an unreadable mask. "I understand. I'll cooperate fully." As the detective leaves, David's resolve hardens. He knows he's crossed lines that shouldn't have been crossed, but the thought of Abigail betraying him still stings with fresh pain. Determined to face the consequences of his actions, David begins to prepare for the legal battle ahead. He contacts a reputable lawyer, outlining the need for a robust defense. In the quiet of his study, David reflects on the path of revenge he chose. The satisfaction of exposing Abigail has been overshadowed by the overwhelming cascade of consequences. He realizes that his quest for retribution has altered his life irrevocably. But there is no turning back now, he must face whatever comes with the same resolve with which he pursued his revenge. The courthouse stands imposing against the gray sky, a stark backdrop to the final act of David's vengeance. Inside, the courtroom buzzes with a palpable tension as David prepares for what he promises himself will be the last confrontation with Abigail. As he takes his seat, his lawyer leans over, whispering, "Are you sure you want to go through with this? It's not too late to back down and settle." David shakes his head, his jaw set. "No, I want her to face everything she's done, in front of everyone." The room falls silent as the judge enters, and the proceedings begin. Abigail's lawyer portrays her as a victim of an overly jealous husband. David listens, his expression unreadable, waiting for his turn. When he is finally called to the stand, David stands, his presence commanding. "Your Honor," he starts, his voice resonant in the hushed courtroom, "I admit to orchestrating the leak, but let it be known that my actions were driven by a deep-seated betrayal." He turns to face Abigail, his eyes cold and hard. "She lied and cheated, not just in our marriage but in her professional conduct. I have proof here that not only was she unfaithful, but she manipulated her way up in her company through deceit." Abigail's face pales as David produces documents and emails, substantiated by statements from former co-workers who attest to her unethical behaviors. The courtroom murmurs, the tide of public opinion shifting as the evidence mounts. "But that's not all," David continues, his voice rising in fury. "Her affair began not recently but years ago, hidden by her and her accomplice with calculated precision." Abigail's lawyer tries to interject, but the judge signals him to wait. The atmosphere is charged, every eye fixed on David as he delivers the final blow. "And here," David says, holding up a series of photos, "is the undeniable proof of her entering a hotel with her boss, not on one, but multiple occasions, long before the promotion was ever in question." The gasps in the room are audible, and Abigail sinks into her seat, her defense crumbling under the weight of her sins exposed. The judge calls for order, but the damage is irreparable. The trial concludes with Abigail found guilty of several charges of fraud and adultery. As the judge pronounces her sentence, David feels a hollow victory. He has broken her, utterly and completely, but at what cost? Outside the courthouse, the skies clear, but the world seems just as grim. David's revenge has left him isolated, his thirst for justice having consumed his compassion. Months pass, and David lives in solitude, his victory overshadowed by a lingering emptiness. That is until one evening, a knock comes at his door. Expecting no one, he opens it cautiously to find Mark, standing there with a somber look. "David," it's over. You've won, Mark says, stepping inside. But at what cost? Everyone who once cared for you is gone. You're alone because they fear you, and what you might do if crossed. David feels the sting of truth in Mark's words. I had to do it, Mark. They had to be punished. Mark nods, understanding yet disheartened. Yes, but remember, vengeance is a monster of appetite, forever bloodthirsty and seldom sated. As Mark leaves, David reflects on his actions. He realizes that his ruthless pursuit of revenge has not only destroyed Abigail but has also alienated him from those he once held dear. The cost of his actions dawns on him, a bitter lesson in the destructive power of his own hatred. The story concludes not with reconciliation, but with a stark realization: in his quest for retribution, David has lost much more than he gained, condemned to a solitary existence, a man haunted by the ghosts of his own wrath.